You're watching the Chaos Protocol on Transplanar RPG, an all-transgender, people of color-led dark fantasy TTRPG show set in an original non-colonial, anti-Orientalist multiverse. If you like what you see, please consider pledging to our Patreon to support the show and get access to a patron-only after-show, early podcast episodes, GM notes, character sheets, and even the chance for your tabletop OC to cameo in our series. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy. The Chaos Protocol is a dark fantasy series that may contain content that is triggering for some viewers. Content warnings for this episode include fire, fantasy violence, apocalypse, death, trauma, snakes, complex and complicated relationships, body horror, monsters, and references to cannibalism. Arc 2, Episode 17. Gods Succumb. From Carved Inside an Empty Urn by Connie Chong. "10,000 years ago. The devouring ignited like a prayer sheet caught in a wildfire. Gods turned against gods, siblings against siblings, lovers against lovers. Divine desperation spilled across Yaolan in sanguine ebullitions, staining the cradle with violence, hunger, death. Amidst this chaos, the Azure Serpent sprang into being. They were a god of intellect and order, structure and numeration, tallies and tithes. They had scales like a spring flood, eyes of burning, piercing blue, and a small, scared, serpentine form that coiled across the battlefield, counting every fallen body, every brutal ascension, every li of territory gained and lost, every knife in every back. The counting was a small, vulnerable light in the pitch-black wood of their consciousness. The counting grounded them. The counting distracted them. But most of all, the counting protected them. The numbers told a story, provided crucial details. Using those details, the Azure Serpent survived. They hid under corpses, in the woods, between shadows, within the bloody fumes of the river itself. When the God-Killer ascended and began her campaign, that beacon of hope, that chosen one, the Azure Serpent watched from the comfort and the safety and the distractions of their numbers. They witnessed the death throes of the devouring from a bookkeeper's perspective, never participating in the gambits, never indulging in the wine of violence, but always keeping score. When the devouring finally came to an end, the Azure Serpent did what all the gods who chose to join the newly minted City of Heaven did. They shed their skin. The Azure Serpent left their old form behind and stepped into a new shape, a new name, a new life. Mu Chunxing slumps into the Emperor's arms. Their azure eyes are unfocused, their skin flushed, their chest heaving. Longdu holds them gently and steadily, looking with deep concern into the face of their head administrator, no, of their friend. The Emperor whispers something only Chunxing can hear, but it takes all the pain out of them. Their body stills, their heartbeat evens. The last of the scales flakes into mist. Chunxing's eyes flutter shut, and the Eastern symbol finally rests. Holding Chunxing's slumbering form to their chest, Emperor Longdu looks up and addresses the gathered gods and cultivators in the Hall of Balance. The head administrator is the hardest worker the city of heaven has ever known. These recent calamities which have befallen our home have taken a strenuous toll on the most dutiful agent of heaven. The thickening of the mist, the disappearance of our colleagues, the monsters. All these disasters reminded Twinzing of the devouring, of the last time we gods were in such desperate turmoil. And Twinzing's response to turmoil has always been to keep score, to count, to compute, to throw themselves into their work and never once rest. And at that, Longdu's eyes traveled to Lumièra for a split second before settling on the symbols. Zhiling, Langhui, Luhua, please, take care of Twinzing. They need to lie down, and they need to be with friends. I know there is rivalry, I know there is friction, but for tonight, put those enmities aside and come together as you just did in this hall to watch over them. Can I trust you? Zhiling lowers her head instantly. Lu Hua clasps their hand over their chest, and Lang Hui at the very back of the hall gives a slow but reliable nod. Good. Then take them back to their chambers and look over them and each other. Zhiling strides forward. She takes Twinzing from Longdu's arms and holds them as though they weigh less than a feather. And for a moment, it looks as though the gentlewoman scholar wants to say something to the Emperor, but at the last second, she bites it back. She steps back, joining the other symbols in the middle of the hall, and the Emperor turns to face the three of you. As for you, cultivators, a private word. Step forward.
Xainan steps forward quickly.
Yeah.
He puts his bow away, lowers his head, and holds his hat against his chest. And his hand behind his back after he puts his bow against his quiver. Anyone behind him can see his fingers tighten in anxiety.
Lumièra does what is the equivalent of a bow and a curtsy kind of combined. Her right leg sweeps behind her left, and gracefully, almost like a swan, does she bow and show her respect before standing up in her nature, and follows.
Seir is always clumsy in situations like this.
No.
He is not built for
Bless his
this.
heart.
But in the moment of peak adrenaline, of surviving yet another destructive moment, he snaps his neck towards Longdu, notices his strike team's movements, and follows quietly behind them, placing a fist against his chest and lowering his head, almost mimicking the same posture that Xainan has right next to him.
As soon as each of you steps forward, you enter a different space, as though crossing the threshold into a secret chamber. From the perspective of the symbols in the hall, it looks like Strike Team Nova has simply folded out of existence. You find yourselves in a vast, dimly lit room with handsome wooden walls, multiple floors branching upward toward a domed ceiling. Magical artifacts fill every crenellation of this space, hanging from walls, levitating above plinths, crowding the shelves. You see weapons of all shapes and sizes, enough to rival the innermost workshop of the White Forge. You see books bound in silk and leather, ancient tomes that would be right at home in the Vermilion Library. You see scrying bowls, incense burners, lavish tea sets that would be the envy of the most debaucherous den of the Black River. This chamber smells like smoke and tea, blade polish and cinders, mystery and might. The Emperor is here too. A shaft of muted moonlight pours through a window, casting a pale spotlight on her. Ta is positioned exactly as Ta was in the Hall of Balance, kneeling in front of a low table. Except this time, it's not an administrative desk. It's a tea table, complete with a teapot made of pure purple clay. 4 cups are arranged on this ornate table with 3 cushions for each of you to kneel on. As your party folds into existence in this chamber, the Emperor addresses you. This is my private artifact room. The most powerful, magical, and dangerous objects in the Sister Realms can be found here, within its walls. No one will disturb us here. Please, have a seat.
Xainan steps forward quickly. He's letting his feet remember how to be an agent more than his mind will let him as he approaches the table and very purposely takes the center seat, places his hat on the floor behind him, and rests his hands in his lap. It's an honor.
Lumièra will follow Xainan in line, take a step to his left, and kneel in the seat next to him. We are most gracious for your hospitality, Emperor.
Of course.
Seir, throughout the Emperor's explanation, was panning violently around to observe the new surroundings he found himself in. The bangles on his tail jingle loudly, clanging against each other on his tail as he swishes, attempting to take in the entirety of his environment. But eyes land right down towards the Emperor. He's focused now. This hunger, no longer a distraction. He bites the corner of his lip as the hunger sharpens into a blade, and he steps forward towards Xainan's right, kneels on the cushion, and faces the Emperor. And there's a moment where he sees a queen in the place of the Emperor, sat surrounded by thick roots, and just nods. Highness?
I believe we can help each other. I have information that is uniquely suited to your party, and I believe you know more about what's happening here than the other gods in the city. But before I tell you what I know, I have a question. What one artifact is missing from my collection?
How are we supposed to know what is missing from a collection?
You're cultivators, yes?
Yes.
Equipped with keen skills of observation and deduction?
Correct.
Put those skills to use, then. What's missing?
Fair enough. And Lumièra, her voice drops in that octave of fine, bet on. And she stands up from where she's sitting at and starts to make a slow trek walk around the room clockwise. And right as she gets to 6 o'clock, she will stop and walk right back around counterclockwise. looking.
I think as
at,
Lumièra
Mhm.
starts to go clockwise, Xainan stands up and seeing her go, starts to go the opposite direction and just scans the wall, but definitely walks further towards the center of the room, letting Lumièra get the closer vantage. And he's looking more up and around at the broader space, because Lumièra's the details person. Xainan's a spotter.
And Seir?
And Seir is a hunter. He looks at the person who asks the question. He looks at all of these artifacts. He notices if anyone's going to find an object out of place, it is Lumièra. If there's someone who's going to find a shadow in unseen places, it is Xainan. If someone's looking for trick of the light, then it's Seir's job to do. And Seir looks over at Longdu and is specifically judging the Emperor's demeanor as they're asking us this question. There's an instinct that bubbles within Seir that this is a question beyond the surface, that there's something else that the Emperor is trying to get at here.
Okay, I think what this means is, Lumièra, I'd love for you to investigate a new location with a default +2. One from Xainan and one from Seir as they help you. Would you like to invoke any other power tags?
Can I still give her a help on top of that?
Yes. This is me basically not shortchanging, speeding up the process of using the help action,
Sure.
essentially. So
Great, yeah.
the most you would get from, like, the highest boon you could get from help a crewmate is a +1. So I'm giving you the default best outcome.
Well, I also have a help point. That's what I was trying to offer.
Oh, you gotta spend that to make the help action. So
That's right.
I'm
You're right.
letting you keep the help point and giving you the
Gotcha.
best possible outcome.
Cool.
Thanks,
Okay.
Connie.
Oh,
You're
great
very
benevolent
welcome, 'cause I
GM.
love the
Connie,
flavor.
You're so benevolent.
Oh,
We
you're
Connie
very
being so
welcome.
kind.
I can take that away though if you want me to. I
No,
can-
no,
real
no.
fast to level it.
I just gave you so many compliments. I just gave you so many compliments. I buttered your biscuit, and then you try to
All right.
take it away from me.
Biscuit buttered. What power tags would you like to invoke?
Biscuit butter really sent me. I'm sorry. I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously. Also, I'm going to use creating liminals. I think it's very interesting because I imagine that Lumièra knows where she's at and what she's up against. So there's things that are available to the naked eye, and then there's things that are available beyond that if you just have the ability to look a little bit deeper. And I think by slowing that, like putting herself kind of in her own little liminal for a spec while she's walking around looking at this, she's giving herself more time to find those hidden end traces of what's being left behind, if there's anything deceiving. Like, are there
Yes.
any evidence left behind of magic, any trails left of something that could
Sure.
be hidden from what I'm seeing?
Any after images, any traces of magic that was once here. Excellent. So that's a +4 to your roll. Go for it.
$13.
That's excellent. Okay. On a 10+, the GM will describe an additional crucial detail that even a skilled sleuth might miss, in addition to describing the area's general ambiance and any prominent features that your trained senses notice. Yes, I think this means you figure out what the missing artifact is. So, Lumièra, as you do a roundabout of the artifact room, clockwise, counterclockwise, Xainan and Seir in their positions feeding you auxiliary information. Xainan looking for the things unseen, the shadows, the darkness. Seir focusing on the countenance of the person who asked this question in the first place. Lumièra, your eyes are drawn to where Seir is looking, which is straight ahead, at the Emperor. And something clicks into place like an unseen puzzle piece, sliding in for that final clue. The Emperor had folded the three of you into existence in this artifact room with intentional positioning, so that you would be looking directly at the thing that's most obvious, the thing that's hidden in plain sight. Behind the Emperor, carved into an elevated nook, is an empty pedestal. It's not very large. It is certainly not big enough to hold a sword or a glaive or anything like that, but it's also not extremely small. It's definitely bigger than, say, a teacup or a hairpin. The size of the pedestal is somewhere in the middle of these two ranges, roughly the scope of a teapot or a large book. There's no plinth to speak of, no written evidence of what was once there, no neat label for you to just say what the object was. But it does occupy a seat of honor directly behind the Emperor, carved into the very center of this room. So whatever is missing is also what's most important. And it's gone. An additional detail I'll give you, as your liminal senses flare for just a second, you see ghostly after images of the people that used to be in this space, and there's just one. It's just the Emperor. You see her moving around you as though a form cut out of mist, stopping in front of various artifacts and then pausing in front of this empty plinth, cocking their head to the side, and then whoosh, the mist washes away past your eyes, and you realize what that means. That object, as long as you've been in here, the City of Mist, has always been missing. One of the first things the Emperor did when the mist took everyone to the city was come to this artifact room. That's what that silhouette was, and go right toward that pedestal in search of whatever was there, and found it gone. So, the only reasonable explanation is that perhaps it was taken when everyone else was taken, but in reverse? There's some fuckery afoot here.
I like to think that at some point, Lumièra, Xainan, and Seir, all going their each different ways, converge at a certain point on that clock at the same time. And it's like so, did you see that spot behind him? They are looking. They put us in a spot where we would not look anywhere else except but at them. But Ta is standing right in front of a blank spot.
Best hiding spot. Plain sight.
Exactly.
So,
There exchanges a look.
Finish your thought.
Exchanges a look between Xainan and Lumièra, and from the both of you, he's basically communicating from all the time we've worked together. There's fuckery afoot, and the Emperor is probably going to know that we've caught on to that.
right on cue, the Emperor says, "So, I see your gazes have fallen upon the empty plinth behind me. Very well done. Any guesses as to what that artifact is, or rather, was?"
Given the location of it and your history, perhaps something to do with what put you in this elevated position in the first place.
Perhaps. Perhaps not. What about what the object takes the shape of? It's not too large, not too small. Could fit in your hand with some maneuvering.
Is there anything significant on Ta? Like, are they wearing a type of like, are they wearing a symbol or a crest? Are they wearing any type of significant, like, insignia or even just clothing, anything like that that I would recognize that could kind of point to something that I would associate different objects of that type of someone who would wear that outfit with, if that makes any sense.
Yes, the Emperor is in flowing, deep, rich purple robes, and there's a motif of dragons, kind of carved with a silvery embroidery all along the robes, bathed in clouds of rolling mist. It's a beautiful set of robes, deeply rich, very royal. Your eyes are also drawn to a rich, brightly silver sash around their waist. Yes, that's just a regular part of many gods' hanfu here. Many gods' robes and outfit is the sash. Xiao Cheng had a sash as well.
And Seir looks back at the spot behind the Emperor and looks around where I assume there's probably porcelain vases around, and turns to look at the Emperor again. His eyes, blue, sharp, piercing blue eyes, narrowed to the fine point of an arrow. A vase or a jug.
Very close. A gourd. The
Xainan
gourd.
cannot keep the reaction off of his face.
I think
As
Lumièra's
he's-
eyes bug too, just a little bit.
It is known as the river gourd. It is the oldest and rarest object in my collection, no, in the entirety of the Sister Realms. Not many gods know this, in fact, very few. The river gourd is the very source of the mist itself. And now it is gone.
Huh. Well, I've seen it. Explaining where it is a lot more complicated.
The Emperor's eyebrows rise, almost imperceptibly at that, but they do rise. Where?
And
There are
Xainan
two
draws
cities of
on-
heaven. Seir mutters, there are two cities of heaven. One where you and the other gods exist. One where, well, I can't say the others, but one other exists, and sometimes we arrive there too.
Yes. The three of you, travelers between realms.
Lumièra looks between both Xainan and Seir and are like, it just flows out of them, just information. And I'm like, I think Lumièra is a bit more trying to hold more cards to the chest, just a bit. Trying to probe for a bit more information. So the fact that they're throwing information out so willingly, unprovoked, she's like, or there's also that.
It's with someone that you trust, that trusts you. Which is why, and Xainan looks to Lumièra, I think it's best that we are all on the same team.
Her eyebrow quirks, like, challenging me. But also a level of respect in there, like, well played.
Let me guess. The person it's in the possession of is My courtier.
Correct.
Exactly that.
Have you seen them since this? And she swishes her hand around to what's happening in relation to around them in the mist. Have you seen them since this has all happened?
Longdu, as soon as the three of you confirm that the river gourd is with Xiaocheng, they let out a deep sigh of relief. They close their eyes for a moment, and when they open them, they address you, Lumièra. No, I have not. Not since the mist took everyone else to this other city. The head administrator had declared your group taken by the mist in the chaotic aftermath of the Hall of Peerless Destiny. And yet, here the three of you kneel, not as monsters, but as yourselves, having returned to the City of Heaven no worse for wear. Let's not beat around the bushes any further. You all went to a different city. A city where Xiaocheng exists, yes?
Yes, and not as a monster.
Correct.
And at that, I want to know, do you tell the Emperor about your time in the empty city?
Lumièra, she will look towards both Xainan and Seir for last minute confirmation before, and if she gets the okay from the both of them, she will lean forward just a tad. Permission to speak freely, Emperor.
Please do.
Yes. I'm still not 100% sure how and why, but wherever we go, when we are not here, we are with Xiaocheng, and they are safe. Lonely, but safe. Wondering just like we are.
Are there any other gods in this other city?
None that we are aware of. Xiaocheng have told us they've looked and couldn't find anyone else.
There is a goose.
Also Goose.
Goose.
Brother Goose.
Yes.
Brother Goose.
They're
I'm
companion.
assuming you're not
Bestie.
familiar.
Hun Xiaocheng does not have an animal companion, and certainly no brother Goose.
Well, they do in this other city of heaven.
That's interesting. Are they a magical goose? A divine goose? Are they a two-headed goose?
They're
They're
white
just a
goose.
That's just the one head from what I remember.
Fascinating. Well, thank you for sharing this information. I have some information to share with you, in turn. But first, another reflection of gratitude for aiding my symbols in the protection of the City of Heaven. I acknowledge that I have been absent during these encounters. The reason is I have been preoccupied with venturing into the mist. I have used every magic at my disposal as the Emperor Immortal to dispel it, traverse it, plumb its secrets, but the deeper I go, the thicker the fog becomes. There is no end to it here. It is limitless, infinite. Even gods eventually must answer salvation's call, but there is no call here. There are no boundaries, no destination. It just keeps going. Before I tell you what I believe is happening, I would like you to offer your theories. All of the clues are on the table. The two cities, the strange behavior of the mist, its impossible persistence despite the concerning absence of the river gourd, its unending nature, the perpetual eventide we find ourselves in this city, And the fact, it seems, that you've been taken every dusk and returned every dawn. What do you think is happening?
With all due respect, Emperor, I am more intrigued with what your idea of this is. You are the one who is experiencing it firsthand. We are just after effects. If I can understand what happens to the gods, maybe I can get a better understanding of what happens to the cultivators.
I would not refer to you or your party as mere after effects. You play a more crucial role than you can imagine here. I can tell you my theory, more than a theory. What I know is true, but I would like to know what you think is happening as well before I divulge this.
A question for you then, if
Please.
you'll indulge me. How do you know that heaven is still in heaven?
You've given me all the keys to my answer.
I think Xiaocheng is in heaven, and we are not.
Where do you think we are?
Given that we have some assurance that Yaolan is still there, the only thing we haven't explored is the underworld. Process of elimination.
If we truly have been transported to the underworld, I promise you the demons would be having a field day.
Then
Which
what's
is
in the mist?
exactly why I feel just the opposite, Xainan. I think you're on the right track. Not to disrespect your theory, but I think too far left. I think we are in between. Like limbo.
Caught in the
Or
threads.
Purgatory.
Yes. Yes, Lumièra, you are very, very close. Seir, you have been quiet. What troubles your mind?
Seir keeps thinking about the monsters, the monstrification, the will of the mist itself. Being put into a separate plane is one thing, but what about the movements of this? And of course, there's the whole question of why Xiaocheng is the only one spared. And Seir kind of looks up towards the Emperor. It explains everything but the thing that everyone fears, the devouring. Being placed into a separate bubble, dimension, limbo in between. But what about the mist? What about and he hesitates. What about the devouring? The monstrification that even leaves the four symbols vulnerable to its call.
Good questions, all. Good theories, all. Good considerations, all. Here is what I think. I believe that we are in a dream.
Excuse me.
That the two cities of heaven are the waking one and the slumbering one. The empty city you speak of is the real city. This one is but a nightmare. A nightmare realized in such painfully acute detail because it draws upon the collective consciousness of all the dreaming gods of the city of heaven. As for where our slumbering bodies in the waking world are, I believe they are trapped in the gourd.
It would make some things I've seen make sense.
So, you believe within the gourd that we have now established is in the possession of Xiaocheng, is holding the souls or entities of
Bodies, minds, and souls, yes. Gourd is a powerful magical artifact. No doubt it could hold all of the gods of the City of Heaven. And yes, given our combined information, the most likely cause of this dreaming mist is my courtier of 4 symbols. I do not know why, and I do not know how, but Hun Xiaocheng must have opened the river gourd on the night of my proclamation. I do not believe them to be malicious, only misguided. They must have had their reasons, and I doubt they knew that all of this would happen as a result of the gourd's opening. Perhaps they were seeking a different outcome. But what that outcome might be and why they felt motivated to go to such drastic lengths, I am unsure. But above all, I trust Xiaosheng.
Excuse me.
Heavenly Emperor,
Yes.
what is the gourd? You call it a powerful artifact, but you haven't told us what it does, what it could do.
The river gourd is the font of the mist. It is the font of all magic in the sister realms. Whether the gourd produces the mist by itself or is simply a portal into a greater realm remains a mystery even to me. I came into possession of the river gourd during my campaign to end the devouring. I learned of its existence and its abilities from a great sage who lived at the very peak of heaven. Back then, heaven was not yet a city. It was a blood-soaked battlefield. I built this place into the home that it is now.
The mist from the devouring. It was described as being hungry. This one is different.
Yes, it is different, but I do not know why. It's a lingering mystery. The answer eludes even me. I know not why the fog has shifted to behave the way that it does, but there is something wrong with it here, that much we do know. It is a haze of deceit. It is a force of monstrous transformation. It brings out not the best in us, but the worst in all of us. This is not how the mist should be. This is not how the mist wants to be. Something is warping it, hurting it. I suspect that the source of that hurt is here, in the City of Dreams.
Not Xiaocheng, who holds the gourd?
It is not possible for Xiaocheng to be the agent of the mist's corruption. Only those within the mist are capable of influencing it, of changing it. This blanket of denial is hiding something else, perhaps someone else's true motives. Another force I cannot quite ascertain, at least not yet.
Someone close enough to want some very key figures out of the way.
That's my number one question. Have you noticed them at all being more eccentric or doing things out of the ordinary, even for them, as of recent, speaking to anyone, doing... I'm trying to piece together the pieces of who could be influencing them to do something like this, and then at the same time also have the power to affect something as innately, divinely powerful as this place. It goes beyond anything I can wrap my brain around right now.
Yes, the person influencing this mist must have a deep, buried, hidden, secret, corrupt desire. It must be so deep and so powerful that even I can't sense it, that even the mist is bending to their will, such is the force of their emotion.
So you do not believe that this warping is intentional, or do you believe that it is so?
That I am not sure. The mist does draw upon our subconscious and conscious desires, but for it to transform like this, to take the gods of the city of dreams and turn them into monsters, to bring out the worst in all of us, I feel it must be conscious at this point. Perhaps not when we were first taken, but now? It is the next highest priority for me to investigate while I am here, inside the gourd. Which brings me to the three of you. You three are, clearly, not simply cultivators from Xainan. This, I can tell at a glance. You are walkers between realms, agents of a higher will. This is why the magic of the mist does not affect you like it does the other gods of the city of heaven. This is why you can return to the empty city while the rest of us remain trapped here inside the gourd. Use this power to your advantage. I believe the fate of both cities rests upon your shoulders.
At the word fate, Xainan's eyes lock. First on Lumièra, and then slide across to Seir. And then he bows respectfully. We will do this.
Lumièra's never been able to really hide from y'all. So her eyes have been dinner plates pretty much this entire time, and she, much less gracefully than before, kind of bows in it. You can tell something's a tad off.
Seir's eyes linger on Lumièra for a moment. How could he not recognize those eyes? The emotions they communicate. And protectiveness flares, and he leans forward, hoping to sink the entire gaze of the Heavenly Emperor. Yes, Heavenly Emperor, and as soon as Seir realizes that he's been speaking to the Emperor like his old self, he finds it hard to bring that mask back up, and he just clumsily puts it on before half measures put in place. It seems that we need to speak to your court here. When you found it missing, and the timing when it was taken, that's what we need to investigate next. Right? Right. We will do this.
I ask that you please work with Xiaocheng, not against them. Together we can find a way to right this wrong, of that I am certain.
No, it's clear they're not the one behind this. It's
Exactly.
No,
They're very
there's someone
dedicated.
here. I shall investigate in the City of Dreams while you carry out your tasks in the City of Heaven. I do request that you are careful with whom you share this information. As for the gods of the City of Heaven, I ask that you be discreet. The more people who know that this is a dream, the more that the dream will unravel, and the more volatile the mist will get. Have you ever noticed in your own slumbering hours, realizing that everything is but a dream, things begin to warp toward nightmare? Things will only worsen. More people like Chunxing will be claimed. If we keep the truth contained, we can unravel the mystery before even more people get hurt.
Then you should caution specifically Luha. Keep them closer from the mist.
Yes, I will make sure to pass that on to the apprentice, and if it falls upon unlistening ears, then to their reticent forge master. I have another request of the three of you, to not just speak to Xiaocheng, but to help them break us all out of the gourd. Now that we know we are trapped inside the river gourd, The way to return the gods to the city of heaven is to simply uncork it. But this task is actually not so straightforward. As the font of all mystery, the gourd refuses to be fully, truly known. But it will, on occasion, allow you to peer inside. The only person I am aware of who knows how to coax it open is the great sage who told me of its existence in the first place. They reside on the tallest peak of the city of heaven, and they are not here, in the city of dreams. I tried seeking their audience and found nothing but mist. So they must somehow be out there, in the empty city. Similar to Xiaocheng, another god who has eluded the mist's grasp. When you return to the real city of heaven, take the gourd to the great sage and seek their help.
We will do this.
Hopefully they're
Also,
all right.
Xiaocheng's gonna be very excited that there's anyone else at all.
If I know my courtier as well as I think and hope I do, I imagine they are in a state of great distress and anxiety.
Right. Thank you,
Very well.
Heavenly Emperor.
You are most welcome. Our fates are entwined, cultivators. These cities are entwined. The wellness of one impacts the wellness of the other.
If I may,
Please.
we will keep your secrets. Will you keep ours?
This is only just and fair. You have my word.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Wildly enough, Lumièra has to bite her tongue because the second the Emperor starts to mentions that our fates are entwined, it's almost like breathing Lumièra's natural callback. In her will we trust. And she starts before she stops herself mid-sentence, remembering where she is. It's low enough for her team members to hear, but not out loud. She just bows again and looks to her teammates.
If the Emperor heard what you whispered under your breath, Ta certainly doesn't show it. They begin to rise with a respectful quarter bow toward the three of you. I appreciate your assistance, and I appreciate your help. But soft. The dawn is coming. I can sense it, even through this shroud of secrets. Quick, when you wake, tell Xiaocheng that I know they must be scared. I know they must be anxious and desperate, but not all is lost. Together, we can and we will bring the gods back. Travel to the tallest peak, meet the great sage, open the gourd. And then you blink, and the Emperor is gone. The tea table is gone, the artifacts are gone, and the hazy shaft of moonlight is gone. You find yourselves standing once again in the Hall of Peerless Destiny, the bright light of morning filtering through tall windows. Strike Team Nova, you are back in the empty city, and you are awake. And you are alone. And we're gonna cut to break there. Thank you all so much for tuning in so far. What a twist! The classic "It Was All a Dream." We'll be back in 10 minutes. Enjoy the fan art reel and the sponsor shoutouts in the meantime, and stick around for the second half because we're gonna announce who our incredible guest NPC is going to be. I wonder who they could be portraying. I wonder what character they might be portraying the special guest NPC. So if you're a fan of Critical Role, Worlds Beyond Number, and Dropout, please stay tuned for after the break. We love you. See you in 10 minutes. Bisho.